This class is part of the Lessons in Tanya project. More classes available at lessonsintanya.com. Major funding for this Tanya class is provided by the Mettel Corporation. Additional funding is provided by Tanya students like you. Lessons in Tanya. The Tanya of Rabbi Schneur Zalman of Liadi, taught by Rabbi Ben Zion Krasnianski. Tanya's text elucidated by Rabbi Yosef Weinberg.
We're on page 321. After we learn that the importance of doing the mitzvah itself, because when you do the mitzvah, you have the essence of the mitzvah. So too, when you study the secrets of the mitzvah, you know the subject matter because you're talking about an esrog, for example. So the secrets of the esrog, the mystical dimension of the esrog, you're talking about an esrog, so you can grasp, absorb what an esrog is. So therefore, you can unite that learning, that understanding, you can unite with it in a very core way, in a very essential way. Versus when you study Kabbalah in general, you're studying the structure of the universe and the different dimensions of reality and the different worlds and the Sfirot. You can't really know its essence. You're just talking about its existence. You're talking about things that be basically essentially beyond our comprehension. So it's just symbols, words, it's abstractions. So you can compare it to the actual mitzvah. However, studying the Kabbalah is a very essential thing in Yiddishkeit, studying the mystical dimension of the Torah. Because it says in the Torah, you have to know Hashem. This is the most important thing we can do, is to know Hashem. This is the ultimate knowledge. As we discussed last week at great length, we had a whole discussion last week, a very powerful discussion, but we left off. And he adds that knowing Hashem, moreover, this leads to a whole heart.
Moreover, this leads to a whole heart, for the latter verse concludes, and serve him with a whole heart, i.e. a knowledge of Hashem leads one to serve him with one's entire being.
Not only is it important to know Hashem, but most importantly is that it leads one to serve Hashem wholeheartedly. It touches the heart. The only way to touch the heart is through the mind. If your mind is not engaged, you're not aware, if you don't have clarity of mind, if you don't have that crystal clear understanding, penetrating, deep understanding of Hashem, nothing is going to touch your heart. Yeah, very superficially. Cheap sentimentality that it's fleeting, that lasts for a moment and a half. But if you want something to really get to you, to get to your heart, wholeheartedly, to be in love with Hashem, and to really feel Hashem. When your heart is involved, when your heart is on fire, it's you're awake. It's a whole different reality. If it's just your brain, your mind, you can understand things, but you're not excited about it. But when your heart is on fire and you're excited, and then you're awake, you're alive, your heart is pumping. But he says, what this really refers to, the greatest level of the heart, the ultimate goal of the heart, is that the heart should reach a place of total fear and awe of Hashem. As it says, I've commanded you to do the mitzvot, all of the mitzvot. V'etzaveinu Hashem Elokeinu lases es hachukim ha'ele liyiras Hashem Elokech, so that we should be in awe of Hashem. This is the ultimate level, the highest level of fear, of awe. When Hashem's presence becomes so real to us that we are in awe of Hashem's greatness, of Hashem's presence. And it becomes such a reality to us that we're just humbled by Hashem's presence. When we're able to sense the greatness of Hashem, how Hashem is right here with me, right in front of me. When you're standing in the presence of greatness, you're completely awed, you're completely humbled. When you're standing next to a great person, you're standing next to Einstein, even the physics professor in Columbia feels like a squash bug. Feels insignificant, nothing. All of his intellect and his brilliance feels completely insignificant in comparison to true genius, true greatness. And that's just a human analogy. You know, when you stand in the presence of a tzaddik, you stand in the presence of the Rebbe. When we go to the Ohel on Sunday, you got a little taste of it. But when you stand in the presence of, you feel completely awed and humbled. So most of us starting out, Hashem is a zero presence. Hashem is just simply not a reality. You know, the simplest nobody, the shmendrik in the room is more of a reality than Hashem is. You know, we're embarrassed to do something when we're in public. Somebody's watching. Nobody. But somebody is there. When I'm alone, we do as we please. But what do you mean Hashem is here? Hashem's presence is so meaningless and insignificant. It's not even like the presence of the biggest shmendrik in town. So Hashem is no presence, no reality. You don't even have the lower level of fear, of a sense of presence. The ultimate goal is not only to have a minimal sense of presence, but we should have the ultimate sense of presence. When you feel Hashem's presence, the great holy Rabbi, the holy Ruzhiner, Rabbi Yisrael of Ruzhin, one of the greatest Hasidic masters of all times. So he once traveled with a colleague, I forget which other Hasidic Rebbe, and the Rebbes were like celebrities. I mean, wherever they went, people came out in the thousands, tens of thousands to greet them, to welcome them. And the Ruzhiner Rebbe saw that his colleague was struggling mightily with all this honor and fame. You know, he was struggling, it shouldn't get to his head, you know. Celebrity status, fame, it can get to your head. We see most celebrities can't deal with it. It ruins their lives, it destroys them. I mean, they become inhuman, and subhuman, inhuman. They just can't deal with it. They just don't live normal lives, and they can't have normal relationships, and they just can't deal with reality. But he was struggling mightily with it. And he asked, how do you deal with all this? He says, you know, it's a tremendous struggle. And he asked the Ruzhiner, how do you deal with it? He said, I'll tell you how I deal with it. Imagine you're walking with a king. You're walking side by side with a king. And all the throngs and the whole audience is looking at you. They don't notice the king. And they're adulating you, and they're praising you, and you don't know where to bury yourself. You're so ashamed, embarrassed. Are you paying attention to me? Are you kidding me? The king? So when you feel, that's the higher level of awe, when you feel Hashem's presence, and Hashem is here, what are you noticing me? What are you paying attention to me? Hashem? What? You feel completely insignificant, you're really humbled. It's not a struggle there. You don't have to work hard on not allowing the fame to get to your head or the success to get to your head. When you feel Hashem's presence, it's so real. When you awe of Hashem, and that's what the Torah says in Deuteronomy. Pasuk says that the whole purpose of Torah and mitzvah, the 630 mitzvot, what's the ultimate goal? By Yitzavenu Hashem Elokeinu Lasses Kol Chukim Eilo. Why is Hashem commanding us to do all these mitzvahs? Leyiras Hashem. In order we should reach the level of yira, of awe, the ultimate awe, the highest level of awe. But the only way to reach that level is when you know Hashem. When you study and delve into the mystical parts of the Torah. If you spend all your life studying Talmud and studying halacha, but you have no energy, you don't spend any time or energy or effort in thinking about Hashem and the greatness of Hashem and the structure of Hashem created the universe, the structure of the universe and the infinite and the higher dimensions and the different levels and the angels and the whole spiritual and the divine, if you don't think about it and dwell on it, focus on it, pay attention to it and meditate deeply on it, there's no way you can reach this level of being in awe of Hashem. Then I'm not even thinking about Hashem. You know, one of the first Hasidim, the first generation, they had no tradition. They were the first ones. So he ran away. He was the prize student of his yeshiva, and he ran away, and he became a Chassid. And he comes home. His Rosh Yeshiva asked him, "Why did you run? Why did you run away from yeshiva? Why did you go to the Mizrich, the Magid? What did you learn there that I didn't teach you?" So he says, "I learned how to read thoughts. I can read your thoughts. I can read your mind. I became a mind reader. So I ran away to learn that." So Shiva says, "Okay, tell me what I'm thinking." "You're a mind reader? Tell me what I'm thinking right now." He says, "You're thinking about God. Thinking about Hashem." He says, "Absolutely not." So that's why I ran away. It's a brilliant Rosh Yeshiva, brilliant Talmudic mind, all day and every day, totally immersed in the Rishonim and the Achreinim and the deepest discussions of the Talmud. But he forgot what it's all about. All the Torah, all the mitzvot are about Hashem. It all has to lead you. Vayitzaveinu Hashem Elokeinu latzach yiras Hashem. You should come to the sense of Hashem, sense of Hashem's reality, sense of Hashem's awesomeness and presence and majesty and greatness and infinite greatness. And so you're learning Hashem's Torah, you're doing Hashem's mitzvahs. It's all about Hashem. Mm-hmm. Imagine you're learning Torah all day, every day, total immersion. You forgot one little detail. You forgot about the giver of the Torah, Hashem, that it's Hashem's Torah. It's not a mathematical equation or a chess game, a game of chess, or to sharpen your brain to see how clever you are and how sophisticated you are and what innovations you can make. It's to lead you to know Hashem. So the only way that you can, in your heart, you can have this feeling in your heart and this sense of Hashem's presence and the awe of Hashem is only when you study the mystical part. So this is an essential part. Although you will never ever be able to know its essence, because you're dealing with spirituality, with soul, with the higher dimensions of reality, higher levels of consciousness. You're dealing with godliness, with the infinite. You're dealing with things that are so beyond our grasp. We can't grasp it. We don't know what we're talking about, really. We're just talking about its existence. We don't really know. We can't experience it. We don't know what it is. But it's essential. And that's what he says, Shuhu ha'ikar. Continue, and this is
the essential thing. The wholehearted awe of Hashem is the ultimate purpose of all the commandments. As mentioned above, one can attain this state only through a knowledge of the order of his tashalut, even though this knowledge is merely an awareness of its existence and not a grasp of its essence.
So you would think, yes, but if I'm learning about the different worlds, I'm also learning about all the worlds, including the lowest world, the world of action. Well, the world of action, I could grasp. So he says, no. Whatever I learn, whatever I study, even about the world of action, it's also, I don't grasp its essence. Why? Because the whole essence of learning Kabbalah, learning the mystical is, continue.
The comprehension of existence entails divesting this subject of any physical.
The whole point of studying the mystical parts of the Torah is to strip away the superficial, to get beyond the superficial. So even when you're discussing the physical world, the physical dimension, you're trying to, the Kabbalah, the mystical, gets to the core, the essence, the secret, the intangible, not the obvious, the surface. It's what's underneath it, what's underlying beyond it, what's really going on, the inner dynamic, the real story, not what you see with the naked eye, what's visible for the naked eye. It's like the famous story in the Talmud, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Yehuda, we're discussing the Romans. And Rabbi Yehuda praised the Romans. Look what they've done. They've built bridges, they built roads, they built marketplaces, they created civilization all over the world. They brought civilization to the world. Rabbi Yossi was quiet. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was sharply critical. The Romans, they built roads to collect tolls. They created bathhouses so they can, for prostitution. Marketplaces to make money. It's not, everything they did was selfish, nothing altruistic, nothing genuine, not because they cared less about civilization, about people. It's purely for their own selfish reasons. And Yehuda ben Gadim was sitting there, and he mentioned this conversation to his wife, and before you know it, the Romans heard about it, and Rabbi Yehuda was promoted to be the leader of the Jewish community. Rabbi Yossi was exiled because he was silent, and Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was sentenced to death. That's why he hid in the cave for 12 years, and then he went back for another year. So, because they was looking for him, they were ready to hang him. So Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai looked at what's going on. On the surface, Rabbi Yehuda was right. It's very impressive. Roman civilization, impressive. Look what they brought. They civilized the world. They paved roads, highways. They connected the whole world. Wherever they came, they developed marketplaces, shuks, and bathhouses, and they created life. And that's what it appears to be very superficial. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who was the Kabbalist, looked deeper. He was the conspiracy theorist. He says they're rotten to the core. It's all lies. It's 100% full of lies, riddled with lies. It's all false. It's all evil. It's negative. There's nothing good about it. And he was right, but he went to the essence of the matter. So the whole point of the Kabbalist, the whole point of knowing godliness, is really to strip away the surface. Strip away the superficial, the obvious, and go deeper and see the real story. Whatever you see, whatever you know is just the tip of the iceberg, which points to what's hidden. The iceberg that you can't see, what's hidden, what's concealed, it just points to something greater. So everything in this world is really just a mashal, a parable that points to this deep, profound idea. And what we're seeing is just a projection of something much deeper. It's like projecting a human being, a three-dimensional object on a two-dimensional surface. So what I see a cartoon, but this picture is just a pointer. It's just a reflection. If I look at this world at face value, then this world is a very false reading. That's why this world is called a false world. Because if you take it at face value, what you get is a very false reading. But if you look at this world properly, you know how to decode it. You know how to decode the message and read it properly. Everything in this world is pointing, it's just a reflection of something three-dimensional, four-dimensional, five-dimensional, and you read it properly, you interpret it properly. Then this world becomes a genuine place. Then you see this world properly. It's proper perspective. Then you see reality. Everything points to something deeper. And the deeper reality points to something even deeper, and it points to something even deeper and even greater and grander. So the whole point of the Kabbalah is really to strip away, like that Russian doll. You keep on stripping away and getting, getting beyond the superficial layers. You look at a person. What do you see? You ask a person to describe someone. One person, all they can describe, they can tell you what kind of shoes they're wearing, what color shoes they're wearing, and the clothes they wear. They're wearing a blue shirt, a white shirt, this shirt. Tell me the color of the person's eyes. I never looked. I don't know. You've only seen them for 20 years. I don't know. I never paid attention. I never looked beyond the blue shirt or the color of their shoes. Another person, police need a description. There are people who can give descriptions. They can start describing the nose, the eyes, the shape, the color, because they pay attention. They notice. They look at a person. They see the person. They're looking at the person. They're not just looking superficial. They're looking at the person themselves. Tell me something about their personality, character. I don't know. Can't tell you anything. I can just tell you about his body, color of their eyes. Another person, yeah, I can tell you about the personality, I can tell you about the character, I can tell you what gets them angry, what they like, what they hate, Okay, so here I'm getting a much better sense of the person. Tell me something about how their mind works, how they think, how they process information. Interesting. I don't know. I never noticed. Never paid attention. Someone goes a little deeper and tells me a little how their mind works. And then you go deeper. How does subconscious work? How, what makes them tick? What really is behind the surface, the consciousness, on a much deeper level. So the whole point of the Kabbalah is to go deeper and deeper, not to take anything at face value. So the whole point is, he said, the whole point of the Kabbalah is lahafshit megashmis, to undress from the gashmis, from the physical, from the surface, the superficial. Don't just look at the body. Look internally. Look at the soul, the intangible, the part that you can't see. That's the real story, not the obvious. Look at the underlying assumptions. Go deeper. What's really going on? What's the inner dynamic? What's the real story? So the whole search of the Kabbalah, is studying. So it's not about knowing the essence, not about knowing the physical. The physical, I can know the essence. It's about stripping away the physical, stripping away the surface, going deeper and deeper and deeper. And that's the whole search of, especially Chassidus, especially Chabad Chassidus. The whole essence of Chabad Chassidus, and you've been learning Tanya now for all these years, is to go deeper and deeper. Not to be satisfied with the superficial explanation, even the spiritual explanation, but what's behind that, and what's even deeper and even more penetrating and even more essential and even more core, and what's behind it and what's it really all about. It's about stripping away, not getting stuck on the garment, on the surface, on the superficial. It's really getting to the heart of the matter, the essence of the matter. The exact opposite of the gashmis. The mitzvah, you have to do with the physical. It's the physical esrog, it's physical. That I know. I know its essence. I can relate to it, I can connect with it, I absorb it. But the whole study of the Kabbalah is going beyond the surface, beyond the superficial. Abstract and more abstract and even deeper and even more profound and subtle and even more subtle. And Chassidus talks about such subtleties, your head starts swimming, such subtleties and depth. And so even though I don't know the substance, because I'm dealing with such abstract ideas and such subtle concepts and such delicate levels of understanding and differentiations and subtleties that are so delicate, but this is essential, because the effect it has on the person is, it takes a person out of being selfish, self-centered, self-absorbed. It takes you out of a life of indulgence. A person who studies Chassidus, it has to have some effect on you. A person who doesn't study Chassidus, he could be a religious Jew, but he's very coarse. You don't see the effect of the Yiddishkeit on the person. The person could be doing everything that's right, could even be wearing the garb, but he's a coarse human being. He hasn't changed one iota. He hasn't refined. He's not even refined himself one iota. But if you truly study Chassidus and you get into the depth, especially Chassidus Chabad, and you really understand and try to understand deeper and deeper and deeper, you can't help it, but it refines you. It makes you a little more edel, a little more refined, a little more subtle, a little less egotistical, a little less coarse and crass. And everything that you do, your approach, you do the mitzvah with a little less ego and a little, it's not about me. It's about the truth. It's about doing the right thing. And it's about truly loving another Jew for the sake of loving another Jew. It's not about me. Otherwise, everything is very coarse and crass. And it's about me and I. And so I'm doing the mitzvah, but there's no refinement. There's no subtlety. It's not spiritual. It's not godly. It's not genuine. It's not authentic. It's very superficial. So that's why it's essential. Even though I can never truly grasp the subject matter, because we're dealing here with such subtleties, spirituality, soul, angels, worlds, dimensions, high levels of consciousness, Hashem, the divine Sfirot, the infinite, beyond. But nevertheless, it elevates a person. You know, a person looks up to the sky. You're never going to reach the sky, ever. But one thing you accomplish, you'll stay out of the mud. A person never looks up to the sky, never looks up to the heaven. He falls into the mud. His head is in the mud. When you look up, at least it lifts you up. It pulls you out of the mud. Your head is in a different place. So you're in a different place. So your life is not about indulgence, not about cravings and constantly fulfilling your cravings. That's what you live for. Indulgence, cravings, self-satisfaction. There's a higher purpose. There's a refinement. This is the effect that studying Kabbalah has on simple Jews, not Jews who are tzaddikim, who are saints, holy people. Simple Jews, average Jews who have healthy Yetzer-Haras, healthy egos. But the immersion and the learning and the studying of Chassidus in depth and getting into it and absorbing it and understanding it to the best of our ability, it also strips you away from your gashmis and your coarseness and your selfish life and self-centeredness and self-absorption and coarseness and I. It elevates you. It lifts you up to a different place. You know, like we just learned the Shabbos, the Alter Rebbe, Likkutei Torah. That Jews are like one chunk, the menorah is one chunk of gold, because we're all like one. When you bang, when you knock on the chunk of gold, you don't know the top ends up in the bottom ends up on top. It's one chunk of gold. I don't know which part is going to end up on top of the menorah, which chunk is going to end up at the base of the menorah. So he says all Jews are one. How can you say all Jews are one? You have a great Jew and you have a small Jew. You have a righteous Jew and you have a sinner. How can you say we're all one? So he says, because you have to realize that if there's anything negative in the other Jew, the great Jew has to think to himself, anything negative in the other Jew, it's my fault. It's from my negativity. I never dealt with my negativity. So therefore, the other Jew is suffering. He's living out my lacking and my fault. If I see anything good in me, it's his good. His good is reflected in me. So even to think along those terms, to think the tremendous humility and honesty, to see, instead of feeling haughty and arrogant, which is a natural reaction, look how great I am. Look at that miserable creature there, that miserable Jew. But the Alter Rebbe says it's the wrong way of looking at it. It's not the way a chassid thinks. It's not the way a Jew really thinks. A Jew is refined. A Jew who studies Chassidus, a Jew is refined, plumbs the depth and goes deeper. It lifts you up and suddenly it takes you out of your coarseness and crassness and smugness and self-contentness and self-satisfaction. And relax. You have good in you. It's not your fault. It's the other Jew's fault. There's something wrong in the other Jew. That's your fault. Take responsibility for that. Get your act together. And he would never be that way. This is what it means, lahafshit megashmi yusri. Uncovering, removing the clothes, removing the layers, by studying, knowing Hashem and studying Kabbalah. That's why it's so essential. You can't say I'm going to study Talmud I'm only going to study Talmud, only going to study Halacha, because that I understand. Kabbalah, Chassidus, it's too lofty for me, it's too spiritual, it's too abstract. I have no clue what I'm talking about. I don't know what it means. 4 worlds, 10 dimensions, 10 sfirot, infinite. What does infinite mean? What does infinite look like? I don't know what you're talking about. Why waste my time? I study Talmud. I know what I'm talking about. There's an esrog. I know what an esrog looks like. There's a landlord-tenant. There's an argument, a discussion. He says, you're a liar. He says, no, I'm telling the truth. I can sink my teeth into it. This makes sense to me. This I know. Civil law, criminal law. This I can relate to. What am I wasting my time learning hours upon hours, learning about things, angels and worlds and dimensions and spirituality and kalim and lights? What are lights? What lights? What vessels? I don't know what you're talking about. But this is essential. This is critical. Because this is what takes us out from our gashmias, from our coarseness, from our crassness. A person can know the whole Talmud inside and out. He's a crass human being, a coarse human being. It hasn't refined him one iota. If anything, it made him more arrogant. Because your whole immersion is in physicality. Yes, you're studying the Torah, but you forgot about Hashem a long time ago if you ever remembered him in the first place. You're not thinking about him, as the Rosh Hashiva says. Absolutely not. I'm not thinking about Hashem. I'm thinking about myself. And I'm thinking about, and since my whole immersion is in the physical, it pulls me down. I become very coarse and crass and physical. But when you study Chassidus, especially when you study the Tanya and you study the Chabad Chassidus, it elevates you. It lifts you up to a higher place. Your life becomes illuminated, fine, refined. The air you breathe, it's fresh air. It's otherwise you live in smog. You live in there's a lot of hot air coming out. There's a lot of smog and like burning coal. Maybe you have energy. You have some musr, but it's burning coal. It's dirty energy. It's you can't breathe it, and it clogs. It's versus imagine you go to a beautiful place, fresh air, mountain, beautiful. You feel elevated. You feel fresh. It's a whole different atmosphere. It's a whole different environment. It's fine. It's inspiring. It's joyful. It's loving. It's good. It's kind. It's deep. It's genuine. It's authentic. It's godly. It's egoless. Versus when it's heavy with ego, I. Every word is I. I argue with Rashi. I think differently. You're arguing with Rashi. Midget of a midget. You're arguing with Rashi. But it's preposterous. It's absurd. It's ridiculous. But this is what happens when your Torah is very coarse and very crass. When you're not focusing on Hashem. There's no sense of awe of Hashem, presence of Hashem, which could only come about by knowing Hashem and focusing on the greatness of Hashem and really spending time and learning and focusing and absorbing and trying to internalize and integrate the knowledge of Hashem.
In other words, one should endeavor to picture spirituality as the Rebbe Shlita has often stressed, one should study the innermost and mystical dimensions of the Torah in such a way that one derives substance from it, vis-a-vis the substance derived from comprehension. And soundly based comprehension can be secured only when this dimension of the Torah is studied with the intellectual elucidation afforded by the teachings of Chabad. However, this mitzvah of knowing God and apprehending divinity is but one mitzvah of the 60.
So now he's going back that yes, even though this is essential, critical to a Jew's life to study and know Hashem even though we can never truly know Hashem and truly comprehend, because we don't know its essence, and the subject matter is completely beyond our grasp, beyond our comprehension. But nevertheless, it's essential. But it's only one mitzvah. There's one mitzvah to know Hashem. But a man, continue.
And a man must fulfill all 613, for they descend from the essence of the external aspect of the vessels of Atzilut, source whose standing was explained above.
And that's what he explained earlier, because the mitzvah, at the end of the day, the mitzvah is the essence of the vessel. It's the essence of godliness. The essence of Hashem is in the esrog, in the physical esrog, in the physical mitzvah, in the knowledge, in the learning and the studying and the knowledge of the Kabbalah and the knowledge of Hashem. You don't really grasp the essence, because you don't grasp the subject matter, the essence of the subject matter. It's beyond our comprehension. But when you do the mitzvah, the physical esrog, since you can grasp the esrog, you have the essence of the esrog, so your essence touches the essence, and that's where the essence of Hashem is found. And that's why he said, even Moshe Rabbeinu, as great as he is, and the greatest prophet that ever lived and will ever live, but you can't really know the essence of Hashem. That's why Moshe wanted to enter into the promised land, which most of the mitzvot, the majority of the mitzvot, are connected to the holy land of Israel, the promised land, because the mitzvah, the actual mitzvah, when you do the mitzvah, you touch the divine. So it's not enough just to do one mitzvah, to fulfill one mitzvah, the mitzvah of knowing Hashem. It's critical and essential that we fulfill all 650, which is why we do spend most of our time, most of our day, we spend not only fulfilling all the 630 mitzvot that we're able to, but studying all the 613 mitzvot which we're obligated to, even today, which the majority of mitzvot are not applicable, but we're obligated. The law of Talmud Torah, the mitzvah of Talmud Torah, as we're learning in the morning, is to learn to study all 613 mitzvot with all the halachas and all the details. The practical application, not only to do the mitzvah, but to speak the mitzvah and to think the mitzvah and to study the mitzvah and to learn the mitzvah and to learn all the halachot. So a Jew has to study the Rambam and he has to study the Tur and the Shulchan Aruch and the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch and the Mishnah Berurah. He has to learn all the halachot. You have to know the whole Torah. You have to know all the halachas. You have to know the reasons. You have to know the whole Talmud. You have to know all the Chazal. You have to know the whole Tanakh. This is essential. This is critical. Why? If knowing Hashem is so lofty and the knowledge of Hashem is so critical and so essential, why can't I just focus, let me study Chassidus all day? Why should I spend time studying Talmud? Especially as the Gemara says and Maimonides says, it's a small thing. Studying the revealed part of the Torah is a small thing. Studying the mystical, the Kabbalah, the knowledge of Hashem, that's a great thing. So let me focus on the great thing. Why am I spending so much time on the small thing? Most of our day we spend studying the revealed part of the Torah. In yeshiva, yes, we spend 3 hours a day studying Hasidus, but you spend 8 hours a day studying the revealed part of the Torah. So he says, because it's only when the Torah that was given to us in the physical world, the physical objects that we can touch, that we know its essence. Since we know its essence, so the only way to touch the divine essence is only by these halachot, by these fulfilling the mitzvah physically, and by studying the halachot about the mitzvah, and studying the everything, every aspect of the mitzvah, of the physical mitzvah. Something that we can sink our teeth in, that we know about, that we can absorb, we can connect with in the deepest way. Essence touching essence. And that's the only way we can touch the essence of Hashem. And that's why he's going to say, that's why it's important, it's critical for every soul. Every soul has to fulfill, as the Alter Rebbe brings down the laws of Talmud Torah in the first chapter. And as he mentioned earlier in the fourth part of the Tanya, the holy letters, letter number 29, that every soul, quoting the Arizal, every soul has to come down into this world many times in order to fulfill all 630 mitzvot. That's why we have to go through many reincarnations until we fulfill every last mitzvah that's possible. Otherwise, he says, the soul cannot receive its reward in the afterlife, because it's like you have to shield yourself, you have to protect yourself. Just like a person has to protect himself from radiation, he has to wear a special suit. If there's one opening, he's dead. So too, the soul needs a garment in order to receive the reward, which is the infinite light of Hashem. The soul will be completely nullified before the infinite light of Hashem. The soul needs a protection. So every organ of the soul, every part of the soul needs a mitzvah. Only when it fulfills all 630 mitzvot is it able to wear this total shield that can allow it to receive the infinite light. Now you can't look at the sun, it'll blind you. Right? By the eclipse, everyone's buying these glasses. You look at the sun, it'll blind you. Yet you need something to shield you, to be able to see. That's just the sun. Imagine receiving even a glimmer of a ray of the infinite of Hashem, even the soul will be completely nullified. So in order for the soul to be able to receive and absorb this infinite light, even a glimmer of a ray of the infinite light, you need this shield. The mitzvah is the shield. But you have to do all the mitzvah without missing one single mitzvah. If you're missing one single mitzvah, you're finished. Your soul is not shielded, is not protected, can't handle it. And that's why the soul has to come down many times in reincarnation or visitation. The soul can visit. You can host another soul. Many times we sense that we're hosting another soul. We feel uplifted, inspired, and we know it's not me. I don't know where this is coming from. So there must be, I'm hosting a very special guest. And by you doing the mitzvah, it's as if that soul also did the mitzvah. Because it's not possible for everyone to do all 630 mitzvahs. That's what Alter Rebbe says. It's not enough, even though the Talmud says if you study the Torah, it's as if you've done the Torah. So why isn't it enough that I study all 630 mitzvahs? Why isn't that enough of a shield to protect me, protect the neshama in the afterlife? It's not enough of a shield. It says if you've learned Torah. But the neshama has to physically do the mitzvah. That's what he says here. The neshama, it's not enough for the neshama to learn the whole Torah. It's not enough for the neshama to do the mitzvah. The neshama has to do the mitzvah, learn all the halachas. It has to be speech, thought, speech, and action. All three. You have to be covered in every dimension. Every part of you has to be covered, protected, and shielded. So your actions have to have done every single mitzvah. Your speech, you have to speak the words of Torah, all 630 mitzvah. And your thought, be engaged in understanding the laws of all 613 mitzvah. Only then is your neshama shielded, protected, whole, complete. And only then are you able to receive a glimmer of a ray of the infinite of Hashem himself in the afterlife. So the essence has to touch essence. Your essence, every part of you has to touch the essence of Hashem. And this is what gives the neshama the shield and the garment that enables it. And that's the mitzvah, that's the obligation on every Jewish soul. To do the mitzvah, to study the Torah in its entirety. And it's not enough to say, well, one Jew is responsible for the other. So maybe my friend did the mitzvah for me. No, it doesn't work that way. You have to do it. And even though when the Torah says if you do one mitzvah, you're exempt from another mitzvah. The Zohar says that like some of the rabbis, he encountered, when he says, I smell from your garments that you didn't do this mitzvah today. And the question is, he was exempt from doing the mitzvah, because we have a rule that if you're engaged in one mitzvah, you're exempt from doing another mitzvah. So halachically, he was exempt. It's not like he was negligent and he didn't do the mitzvah. The Torah told him not to do the mitzvah because he's busy with another mitzvah. But nevertheless, the fact is he didn't do the mitzvah. Yes, you're exempt. Torah tells you don't do the mitzvah. One mitzvah includes all the other mitzvahs. It's all nice and good. But at the end of the day, you did not do that mitzvah. You don't have that garment. You don't have that shield. So every soul must. It's not enough that we learn the Torah. It's not enough that we're all responsible for each other. It's not enough that I'm busy with this mitzvah, the other mitzvah. Every one of us has to fulfill all 613 mitzvahs. Now some mitzvah, it's not possible. Like a high priest or a king. How many kings were there? Only a handful of kings. How is every Jew going to be a king? You can be reincarnated from today till tomorrow. It's never going to happen. So that's what we learn. The king is the heart of the nation. So whatever mitzvah the king does, the mitzvah that are relevant only to a king, when he does the mitzvah, he's doing it for the whole entire Jewish people, like the heart. So when he's fulfilling the mitzvah, we fulfill the mitzvah. We have that garment. Same thing you say in a high priest. But the mitzvah of a Kohen, the mitzvah of a Levi, we're Yisrael. So how about all those mitzvahs? And again, that's a reincarnation. Or by way of hosting. Our soul could be hosted by a Kohen. The times of the temple, maybe we were hosted. So we, when he did the mitzvah, it's like our soul did the mitzvah. Once the soul has those garments are forever. The soul is to be reincarnated to make sure that he does the 613th mitzvah. You already have all the garments, but you're missing one garment. You're missing one garment. It's a no-go. It's a no-show. You can't receive the reward. So you have to come down again. And that's what the Alter Rebbe says. That's why this exile is taking so long. That's why it took so long. Because we had to come down many times, multiple times, to do it, to do the mitzvah, to get the job done. You know, who was that singer that came in a concert? He was invited, and at the end of singing, everyone started roaring, encore. After the fifth encore, he says, how many times do you want me to sing it? He says, you're going to sing it until you get it right. Our soul has to come down to this world until we finally put in the last piece. Today, we're putting in the last piece. There's no more reincarnation. Mashiach is coming now, this moment, this second, a second away. So now there's no more, we can't push off the next generation. In the previous generations, you push off the next generation. Next time around, I'll get it right. Now there's no next time, this is it. We're just here to put the last piece, the 613th piece, the last piece. This is what completes us. That's why we're the ones who are going to bring Mashiach. We're the midgets. We're putting in a tiny little piece. But it's the last piece. It's what completes everything else. For the first time, we have the whole picture. We have 613. We have it all. So this is the last piece. Especially tzedakah. This is where our generation sparkles, as he said earlier. So this is the last piece that we have to add. You know? Today you have 100 Moses Montefiores. So today, and the Rebbe says we've already put in the last piece, so mission accomplished. So that's why it's essential that we have to do the mitzvah. It's not enough to study the mystical and to be totally immersed in the mystical. It's critical for us to take action, to do all 600 things, to learn all the halachas, to learn the revealed part of the Torah. And as throughout Jewish history, as we discussed last week at great length, all the great mystics were the greatest rabbis, halachic authorities, the revealed part of Torah. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. There's no other Tana that's quoted as often as Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. He's quoted in almost every single chapter in the Shas, all 6 orders of the Mishnah. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the author of the Zohar, he is the greatest scholar. Maimonides, the Bird of Nebuchad, the Ravid, Rabbi Yosef Karo, the Ramah, Rabbi Moshe Isserlich, the Thesis Yontev, the Maral. Throughout history, the Alter Rebbe, the author of the Tanya and the author of the Shulchan Aruch. It goes hand in hand. So those who learn all 630 mitzvot, to know the whole Talmud backwards and forwards, know the halacha inside out, every halacha, are the ones who also spend hours and hours studying and delving in the greatness of learning about the greatness of Hashem and learning the mystical parts of the Torah. They're both critical, they're both essential.
Hence, one must extensively study all 613 mitzvot and hence fulfill them in actual practice, in thought, speech, and deed, which parallel Briah, Yetzirah, and Asiyah, respectively, in order to purify whatever needs purification, Birur, there. As previously explained, the extraction and elevation of the sparks exiled in the various worlds is the ultimate purpose of creation. If the Beit HaMikdash doesn't exist and we cannot bring the sacrifices, how do we fulfill those mitzvahs?
So this goes back from the beginning. When we had the Beit HaMikdash, we took care of the mitzvah that we had to do then. The Beit HaMikdash existed for, between the two temples, they existed for 830 years. Today, that's done already. Once you do a mitzvah, you have it. The soul has it. You don't have to do it again.
Oh, we were there.
We were there. We have to come back. We're reincarnations many times. But those mitzvot were taken care of. Those mitzvot, we don't have the opportunity anymore. So those mitzvot we must have taken care of in the times of the temple. Or many of the mitzvot even before that. The Mishkan. Don't forget the Mishkan in Gilgal, 14 years. Shiloh, 369 years. Neuven Givon, the Rambam says 57 years. So you had the tabernacle, you had in the Mishkan, in the desert, you had for 39 years. So we had the tabernacle for almost 500 years. And then you had both temples for 830 years. So we had the opportunity to do those mitzvot then. But then all the other mitzvot. We don't have a king today, we don't have a high priest, we don't have any of those mitzvot. That's why it says, that's why we have to come back so many times, just to complete, just to finish, to make sure we're perfect, we're whole. So we live in such a fragmented generation, such a fragmented time, and yet the whole purpose is for the soul to come down in order to reach perfection, wholeness. All 613 without missing one mitzvah. You can't miss one single mitzvah. You miss one mitzvah, you're zapped, you're radiated, you can't receive anything. You're nullified. One mitzvah has to be perfect, whole, complete. It's such a broken generation. And yet, the whole point, our whole mission is we should reach wholeness and completion and perfection, which is Mashiach, which brings Mashiach. Mashiach is wholeness, completion, perfection. The antithesis of exile, which is broken, shattered, fragmented, confusion, chaos. But what's really going on, the inner dynamic, is we're going in the exact opposite direction. We're hurtling towards wholeness, perfection, completion. And that's Torah mitzvah. That's the divine program. And it's a perfect program, given by a perfect God, which is going to lead to a perfect world. Versus the zeitgeist of today is to celebrate that brokenness, celebrate that fragmentation, to give up, basically. To dumb everything down to the lowest common denominator. Surrender to the worst, to the lowest, to the basest, to the coarsest, to the crassest, and that's the best you can expect. Don't expect anything else. Don't hope for anything else. This is liberation. Celebrate. Liberation is that a person is broken, and you should liberate, and you should celebrate it. Give up any hope of change, of liberation, of freedom, of change, transformation, elevation. We can change. We never will change. We're not going to change. We're going to celebrate the way we are, which is so I mean, whoever is selling our youth this bill of goods, this is Bernie Madoff on steroids. The difference is that with Bernie Madoff, you're losing your life savings. Here, you're losing your life. You're losing your soul. Anyone who buys into this nonsense, buys into this dangerous, reckless nonsense, it's a con job. They're being sold a bill of goods. The Torah is perfect, given by a perfect God, and it's a perfect vision of reality. And anyone who says the Torah is making a mistake, and the Torah is not with the times, and the Torah, Hashem got it a little wrong, and we have to change the Torah, is so lost, clueless. And to say that is Judaism, this is love, this is Judaism, this is the opposite of love, it's the opposite of Yiddishkeit, it's the opposite of truth. It's cruel, unusual cruelty to sell our youth such a bill of goods, lies that robs our youth of their soul, of their eternity, of their soul, of their relationship and connection with Hashem, of their truth, of redemption, of Geula, of Mashiach, of godliness, holiness, purity, emes, life. But that's the confusion of the world we live in. It's so confused, it's so upside down, it's so distorted that everything is upside down. I'm just an extreme example that's so shocking. I mean, just the last few weeks, you can tear your hair out. Jewish children in school, here and in England, saying Kaddish for the terrorists that came to kill Jewish men, women, and children, to attack our border and to penetrate the border in order to murder Jewish men, women, and children. And they're saying Kaddish for these murderers, for these terrorists, which Hamas publicly admitted were Hamas terrorists. And Jewish children are saying Kaddish for them, criticizing the Jews for defending their lives. Shock number one. Shock number two, the Reform Seminary, 2-3 weeks ago, in their graduation. So they had this writer address them. I mean, Hitler couldn't have given a better speech. Like a Nazi. An anti-Semite. He decried, he's against Jews marrying Jews. It's a tragedy that Jews are marrying Jews. I think he was bemoaning the fact that he married a Jew. The language that was used. This is supposed to be a graduating class of Jewish spiritual leaders. Poison, toxic poison, pouring venom on the Jewish people and Israel and on God and the Torah and everything that's holy and sacred, with lies, blood libels, distortions, upside down thinking, crooked thinking. It's like, shocking is not the word. But this is the clarity that we're having today. It's tremendous clarity. When everything comes out into the surface, when a person is deathly ill and he mistakenly thinks that he's healthy. And by the way, the seminary came out defending. It's a democracy. We're not afraid to have opinions. We can hear all opinions. This is your graduation. This is the message that you want your graduates to hear. Someone who is attacking everything that's sacred and holy by the Jewish people. Oh, we're so open-minded, really. Would you like if someone came and insulted you? Insulted your mother, your father, your brother, your sister? This is not open-mindedness, this is sickness. This is deformity. This is illness. It's so toxic, it's so evil. But this is the clarity. When there's no Hashem, and there's no Torah, and there's no truth, and there's no godliness, and all you have is ego and arrogance, this is what you end up with. It's tragic, really tragic. But in reality, we're going towards wholeness, redemption, perfection, completion, Mashiach, godliness, genuineness, truth. And all of this will go the way of communism. All this nonsense. It's just sad because people, innocent people, get hurt. People fall for this. Just like millions of people believed in communism. Millions of Jews. It's like the biggest joke of history.
Not so innocent.
Okay, but it's and they gave up their lives for nothing, for nonsense. It's a joke. It's over. It's as if it never happened. And this is what you believed in? And this is what you gave up your life for? And this is what you gave up your Judaism for? Well, all of these isms and all these nonsense that's going on today is going the way of communism. They'll all go the way of communism. But people get hurt. People who fall for it, and people who take it at face value, and people who fall for these illusions, delusions. You get hurt in the process. There's no changing, there's no stopping the tide of history. Torah will triumph. Hashem will triumph. The Jewish people will triumph. We're going to look at this as like a blip in time, as a moment of insanity. Truth will triumph, is triumph. But it's just sad, all the people that fell for it and got caught up with it and really self-destructed and harmed themselves. So you have to go beyond the gashmias, you have to go beyond the surface. Yes, it appears to be the world is heading in one way, but you have to realize the reality is the world is heading in a whole different direction. Internally, the world is moving in a whole different direction, whole different world. And it's now, till now was internally, and now it's starting to come out into the surface. And that's when Mashiach will come, when the subconscious will become conscious, and the inner depth will come out into the surface, and the truth will emerge, and it's all its glory, and the sun will shine, and all this bubble will burst, and all this nonsense will just melt away and go the way of history. And, we'll take the Torah any day. Any day. Any time of the day. We'll stick with the Torah. Every letter of the Torah, every word of the Torah. As the Torah says, Hashem said, let 1,000 King Solomons perish, and not one letter of the Torah, not one iota will ever be changed. Because Torah is perfect. It's the blueprint. It's Hashem. And every letter in the Torah is perfect. Every word in the Torah. God forbid to say, well, there's one part in the Torah that maybe Hashem got a little wrong. He forgot to the 21st century. No. I will take the Torah any time of the day over any of these pseudo-intellectuals, pseudo-con artists, or spiritual Bernie Madoffs who are selling our youth, selling them a bill of goods. And snake oil salesmen, that's what they are. Snake oil salesmen. The cheapest of the cheap, the lowest of the low, the worst of the worst. But we're going to stick with our Torah.
It's just ignorance, because if you study history, all this has been tried before.
Absolutely.
Nothing new.
Absolutely.
And whoever try it again, it just shows you that they are ignorant. They never really study history. They never really looked at it deeply.
That's a brilliant point.
That's all it shows you.
That's what happened to Rome. The moment Rome endorsed gay marriage, that was the end of Rome.
So many examples throughout history, because there's other people throughout history who didn't study history. It's nothing new. And if you really look at it, it's a joke. It just shows you that these people, doesn't matter where they come and what the title on the wall, they never study. And you always end up the same.
It's true. So many of the youth are now enamored with communism and socialism. Hello, we just tried it.
It's not even 100 years.
Not even 100 years. It totally failed. Look at Cuba. Look at Venezuela. What 100 years? Look today. Look at Venezuela. Look at Argentina. Argentina used to be the third richest country in the world until they turned left. Look at Russia. You want to go? You want to try that? Oh, we used to. But you're right. People forget. And they think they're so progressive and they think they're so clever. They're just totally. But the difference is, the only thing that's different today is now everyone does everything in the name of Torah. Everything today is Judaism. This is Judaism. Even though it's 180-degree opposite of Judaism, and it says clearly in the Torah one thing. But no, you see, they know that they have no leg to stand on. But they want to have the seal. They want to have our seal. Why do you insist on calling it a marriage? You want to live? It's a free country. Do as you please. No. We want you. Because they know it's false. They know it's a lie. They know it's a monstrosity. But they want to have the kosher seal. Oh, it's love. This is Judaism. Because they know how empty it is. They know that they have no leg to stand on. So they need us to say, it's okay, it's wonderful, mazel tov. That's the lie, the monstrosity of the lie today. This never happened before in history. Because everything today is kosher. The biggest anti-Semite today doesn't call himself an anti-Semite. No. Tikkun olam. In the name of my love for Jews, I'm going to spend my whole life besmirching the Jewish people, blood libeling the Jewish people, harming the Jewish people, but all in the name of Torah. This never happened before. There was always corruption, but they never claimed to be anything other than corrupt and decadent. Today, everything is in the name of holiness. Love, war today is peace. That's why we came up with Oslo. It's a war. It's peace. We'll kill you, but peace. Blood is spilling in the streets. It's peace.
1984.
Yeah, 1984. This is Orwellian. This is not just evil. This is Amalek. This is a sinister evil. This is a corruption, a mental corruption. This is a very dangerous, when you play with someone's mind, a person who's emotionally corrupt, he doesn't rationalize it. Listen, I'm weak. There's a possibility for him to do teshuvah. There's a possibility for him to come back home. There's a possibility for him to change. But when you start corrupting the mind, and up is down and down is up, you can't even find your way back in if you want to, because I'm a tzaddik. This is Torah. You don't even know that there's anything wrong. On the contrary, if you're against me, that's wrong. So you can't even find your way home, even if you wanted to, because you live in a false universe. You've created a false narrative. You live in a false universe, and you can't speak honestly. You can't have an honest conversation. Everyone is, how dare you insulting me? You can't talk honestly, objectively, facts, reality. Don't mix me with the facts. Don't mix me up with facts. Don't mix me up with reality. Don't talk to me about history. What does Shimon Peres say? History doesn't matter. Well, history doesn't matter. Facts don't matter. Reality doesn't matter. So, you can't even have a conversation.
This class is part of the Lessons in Tanya project. More classes available at lessonsintanya.com.